This council gambled public money and lost.
Why do they get away with spending money like that, reckless, and then our children have to pay for it?
And local people are paying the price.
They hurt them, they hurt me. I'm sorry.
This is the council officer who risked hundreds of millions of pounds.
Okay, you were warned of the risks, weren't you? Sir, speak to me, please.
And this is the businessman who profited.
Talk about a guy who owns a lot of flash cars, isn't afraid to show his wealth.
We reveal how he cheated the council and spent millions on himself.
It's just sickening. It's utterly sickening.
Thurrock sits on the banks of the River Thames in Essex. The council has some of the most deprived areas in the UK. Now it has to make major savings, so services are at risk.
Hello, how you doing? Hi.
Breakfast now? I'll take it to you. There you go.
Raquel's daughter Bella has speech and mobility problems, so she attends a special school.
She absolutely loves all her teachers. They're so sweet. It's like a family there. They're very, oh God, she has a little friends as well. They're all with different seeds, but it's very fun because they're all very kind to each other. I thought you were hot. You know, goggles.
How does Isabella get to school at the minute?
At the moment she has transport, private bus. Come on. Time to go.
But her lift to school has been under threat.
Oh, there's a golf stop.
The council has told parents it's looking at other forms of transport for children.
See you later.
The only one that will work for me and Bella will be the bus transport, the private one that she has currently. Literally, she's at school because she has transport. If not, we would have to go back to home educating.
What do you think will happen if you have to tell her she can't go to school anymore?
God, I don't even want to think about it because she will be devastated. It makes me feel very angry because it's our lives and it's our children's lives. It's not something to fiddle and play with. You know, for them it's just a number. But we're not just numbers or cases. You know, it's real families, real people that struggle every day.
Thurrock Council now says it will continue to provide the existing school transport. But the problems here are extreme and big cuts are needed. The council borrowed money and then risked huge sums on dodgy investments. It's left Thurrock with the second biggest deficit ever recorded by a local authority, £470 million.
Services across the area are being cut and council tax bills are going up 10% to try to cover the shortfall.
Thurrock Council is in a very desperate financial situation, so they've got to look at this extraordinarily large debt and find a way of writing it off.
Well, would you say they've been reckless with public money?
Unquestionably reckless. These kind of investments are reckless and they shouldn't happen. I mean, it's not an appropriate use of public money.
People here will be paying for the council's mistakes for years to come.
They're not running it like it should be run. How many other councils in Britain are in debt like Thurrock Council?
There's no one being held accountable for that spending apart from us, because we're the ones paying, what, 10% increase? It's disgusting.
First thing we knew about it was when it was in the local paper and on the news saying that they were in these millions of pounds worth of debt and it was a bad investment that had been done.
For November 2018, because that the emails don't show him personally.
We're working with the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. Gareth Davies is their reporter who broke the story. He was looking at how much councils had borrowed from other councils when he found a shocking figure.
There was one council They'd borrowed £1 billion from other local authorities, which, you know, I've been a reporter in this area for a long time, but that staggered even me to see that number.
Thurrock had borrowed almost twice as much as any other council. The £1 billion was 7 times its annual budget.
$1 billion just sounds like a huge amount.
Well, £1 billion is a huge amount, particularly for a council of this size. Anybody in Thurrock and elsewhere asking how on earth this happened are right to do so, and politicians nationally and locally should really think about how they make sure it doesn't happen in
Guy who owns a lot of flash cars isn't afraid to show his wealth. It's now taxpayers in Thurrock footing that bill. Deals that they had no idea about were taking place behind closed doors, were lining the pockets of this man and enabling him to live the lifestyle they could never imagine.
This is how the council gambled its cash. Investing in solar farms like this one in Wiltshire. They were owned by Liam Kavanagh, pictured here in 2016. The idea was that the council would get regular interest payments from the profits. And its cash would be safe because it was secured against the value of the solar farms.
On the surface, it was appearing to work, and while the investments were working, it made sense. But it was like a house of cards.
The figures are staggering. Thurrock started investing with Liam Kavanagh's business Rockfire in 2016 and kept putting in cash. By 2020, the Conservative-led council had handed over £655 million.
The council has effectively gambled on the sunshine. They have borrowed huge amounts of money, hundreds of millions of pounds of money, which they've then lent to somebody else to invest. And I think they've done it in a way that was reckless.
There were two sides to Liam Kavanagh's operation. Rockfire dealt with the investors like the council, and another company, Token Energy, ran the solar farms. One of its directors has agreed to talk publicly for the first time.
Did you have any interaction with the council directly?
No, so over the 5 years that I ran Toucan, we never met, exchanged emails with, had any telephone conversations with anyone at Thurrock Council. It was entirely separate, I can't stress that enough. Mr. Kavanagh was very clear and unambiguous. He had his way and that they were the rules. I was given a series of categoric assurances that everything was being handled correctly.
Who gave you those assurances, Dan?
Liam?
In person?
Yes.
In 2020, the investments began to unravel. The press revealed how the council had invested huge sums with Liam Kavanagh. In response, he started closing down the companies that had done the deals. He was recorded on his car dashcam giving the orders.
Bomb got dropped when we got back, the announcement, and it's still continuing. But it's made my mind up. Wind up Rockfire, start selling assets, restructure, and you can take the risk, you get in, you get out, and now it's dead. So you let it die. I'm not going to. I'm never going to raise a pound for local authority again.
After Liam Kavanagh's companies were wound up, the interest payments to Thurrock stopped. And last year, the council was effectively made bankrupt.
Do you feel in any way responsible for some of that happening?
I think everybody who's been a member of the council over the last 6 years has to have some responsibility for this. Every one of us could have done more than we did to bring this out and to stop it happening. Every one of us has to look at ourselves.
Administrators are now selling the solar farms so the council will get some cash back.
But there's a problem with that because they're not worth anywhere near what the council invested in them. The council stand to lose around £200 million.
Thurrock was forced to make savings of £7 million last year, but it will take years of cuts to cover the losses.
It's just sickening. It's utterly sickening. That means that services will be reduced to the absolute minimum level. It'll mean dirtier streets, grass not being cut as regularly as it should be. It'll mean cuts to services for older, vulnerable people. It'll mean cuts to services for younger people as well.
This is Funky Feet, a dance class for people with learning disabilities.
It's a group that I started 14 years ago, and it's for anyone that's got vulnerabilities, disabilities or struggles with mental health.
Vicky relies on council funding, and it's been stopped because of the crisis.
How much money are you talking about?
Just over £7,000 a year. If we haven't got any funding, then we don't know. We don't know what the future is for our group, unfortunately.
I'm sure you feel very protective over everyone that comes here.
Yeah, really protective. Mm-hmm. They hurt them, they hurt me. I need to stop now. I told you I'd get out of this, I'm sorry. Sorry. It's just an ongoing battle. How can you just take something from people that thrive in that situation, that are safe and comfortable? How can you just do that?
The council says some class members may be eligible for individual grants.
So Nicholas, tell me why you love coming to this class and why it's important.
Really important because it is the socialising here. And I'm really upset. I love my teacher. I love this group. And I love this group.
I don't want to make everybody sad. Do you know what I want you to do? I want to tell me about how much fun you have here.
I do have fun.
You do have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say to the council?
Get out and go and speak to the youth, the adults, the children, the community, the vulnerable. Go and have some conversations and physically find out what actually is needed before you decide to cut.
Thurrock's troubles began because it was trying to avoid cutting services. In 2011, the coalition government gave local authorities more freedom to raise funds and invest.
I just find it extraordinary that a local authority can lend money on this scale, running to hundreds of millions of pounds, without carrying out appropriate due diligence and putting that money at risk that comes from ultimately taxpayers and central government funds.
Thurrock isn't the only council to have made disastrous investment decisions. Woking, Slough and Croydon all lost big money too. In the last 2 years, they've all been made effectively bankrupt.
There used to be a spending watchdog to stop councils taking big risks like Thurrock. But the Audit Commission was abolished in 2015.
What's happened here is that the council officers and members have gone for a strategy which clearly was much way out of line with what you'd normally expect a council to do, and there was no oversight of it by any external body. The Audit Commission would have picked that up, I think.
The government says it's introduced measures to detect risks and has offered Thurrock financial help. One man was in charge of the council's bad investment decisions. Its Chief Financial Officer, Sean Clark. A report by Essex County Council found his investments resulted in the loss of substantial sums of public money, and there were attempts to conceal bad news and avoid public scrutiny.
The report says few people actually knew what was happening, and only one person knew everything. That person was Sean Clark.
He'd been warned about the risks back in 2018. Consultants described the risk appetite as extreme and said the extent of the risk taken by Thurrock Council is unprecedented. But Clark didn't tell the council about the warning and carried on investing.
This could not have happened in a properly run local authority. There were no proper checks and balances, no proper internal record keeping, minutes not being kept of meetings, too much done behind closed doors.
Some of the meetings were completely off the books.
Sean Clark and Liam Kavanagh would secretly meet at this 5-star Mayfair hotel to discuss council business. There's no record of what was said or who footed the bill.
Sean Clark invested £1 billion. Some went into other companies that went bust. But his biggest spend was the $655 million he invested with Liam Kavanagh.
It's a bit of a mystery why Sean Clark was running such a risky investment strategy and giving so much money to one man. I just don't understand why he ignored the warnings and kept so much secret from the council.
Mr. Clark hasn't responded to our questions, so I'm going to try to speak to him.
Mr. Clark? Mr. Clark, hello. Mr. Clark, it's Bruna Monroe from BBC Panorama. We've been writing to you, sir, about the solar park investments. We'd like to ask you a few questions, if we may, because you haven't been responding. Mr. Clark, can you tell me why you invested all of the money with Liam Kavanagh? You were warned of the risks, weren't you? Sir, speak to me, please. Sir, the deals at the Mayfair Hotel, the secret meetings that you had with Liam Kavanagh, what happened at those meetings, sir? Mr. Clark, do you not think the people of Thurrock deserve an answer? They're facing years of cuts and tax increases. Would you not like to say anything to these people? Okay, if you're refusing to answer, Mr. Clark, I'll let you go. It's well known that Mr. Clark was the only man in the council that had all of the answers to what was going on and why deals were made. And it's very obvious from this today that he's still unwilling to talk about what he did or why.
Thurrock's new council leader told us he was deeply sorry for the shocking and unacceptable failures of the past. He says the council was committed to making sure that lessons are learnt and is taking all appropriate action to recover the council's financial position, while ensuring to protect vulnerable residents and essential services. The council's investments were disastrous. But what about the man who profited? We've uncovered evidence suggesting Liam Kavanagh cheated the council. It centres on the valuation of one portfolio of solar farms, called Magnetar. The value is crucial because it determines how much cash the council can safely invest.
Investments lose money, they gain money, that's business. It isn't just a case of that. That's not what the evidence shows. The evidence shows that misleading information was provided to the local authority that gave a significantly inflated valuation of some of these solar farms that led to £130 million of public money more being put in to these deals. These are serious questions to answer about how that money was obtained.
If If you are valuing a solar farm, one important figure is the average price of electricity, how much you're getting paid for it.
Our evidence shows that Kavanagh gave valuers an inflated power price, which made it look like the solar farms were worth more than they really were.
This spreadsheet shows the prices that Kavanagh is getting for solar energy in 2018. The Magnetar portfolio is averaging £46.92 per megawatt hour. But the valuers are given a higher price of £61.45. So that inflates the value of the portfolio. It happens again when the same solar farms are revalued in 2020. Liam Kavanagh is told by his own staff that the average power price is predicted to be £41.70. But he insists the valuers are given an inflated price of £62, which they seem to accept.
The effect of that will be that you end up with a far greater valuation of the overall portfolio of solar farms than is actually the case. And anyone relying on that information is going to be misled by it. And yes, it is a misrepresentation. If he's doing it with that intent, it could potentially be fraudulent.
Thurrock had already invested more than £500 million. With the new inflated valuations, the council invested a further £130 million. But the extra cash never reached the company running the solar farms.
In April 2022, we had a meeting, or I had a meeting with one of the advisors of the council. Yeah, and they asked me, had the solar farms or Toucan Energy Services or me seen that money? And I gave them the same answer I gave you, which is no, we had not seen any of that money.
What was the feeling in the room during that meeting?
Tense. Obviously, being asked, have you seen £130 million when you haven't, is not an ideal question. So it's a hard meeting, but we had nothing to hide. So we just gave them the answers to the questions.
We've obtained internal documents from Liam Kavanagh's business, Rockfire. They reveal what happened to the council's cash. The first 40 million disappears almost immediately into a bank account marked other.
It's 40 million. That's not small change.
Go on and click of the button.
Another 12 million goes to Alpha Area, the company which buys Liam Kavanagh's plane.
Alpha Area LP, the company which owns the private jet bought with Thurrock's money.
This document, really, this series of documents, sort of the missing piece in the puzzle.
You could say that. I'd say we now have the full picture. We now know how they got the money, where it went, and how it was spent.
There are more payments for Liam Kavanagh's £2 million Bugatti Chiron car. Then there's £16 million for Eureka, that's his yacht. And this £2 million payment went toward a mansion he bought called Ash Park. None of the council's £130 million went to the solar farms. Liam Kavanagh went on a spending spree instead.
People, let's put this in perspective. We're talking to people and they're telling us that if they got £2,000 or £7,000, they can maintain services for vulnerable people. They're potentially going to have to fold if they don't get that.
And here we have tens of millions of pounds spent on a yacht or a jet. That can't impossibly be the intention of the council's investment. I really think it would break some people's hearts in Thurrock to see it laid out like this.
Our evidence suggests Liam Kavanagh always planned to spend council cash on himself. We've obtained an email he sent in 2020. It says, These funds will be used to create a new family investment office and to create wealth for years to come. This has always been my plan.
It's almost impossible to justify the application of money provided for the solar farms being used for the purchase of a private jet or a yacht. And it clearly isn't for the purpose of which it's intended. And if that was not known to them at the time, then the position was misrepresented, then it could be potentially fraudulent.
Liam Kavanagh is no longer living in the UK. His lawyers say he was entitled to spend the council money on whatever he wanted. They insist it was all legal. They say the power prices were honest predictions and the solar assets were not overvalued. There were no restrictions on how the investments were to be used, and that all payments were entirely permissible and approved by Rockfire's finance team and auditor. Liam Kavanagh said he never misled Thurrock Council and understood it conducted its own independent due diligence. Liam Kavanagh may blame the council, but Thurrock will be paying for his dodgy solar deals for years to come.
There isn't a normal human being that doesn't have great sympathy for the people that have to, working people in an area where they wouldn't have had any influence on the decisions at this level, but have to live with the consequences for decades.
The people here have been let down by their council.
Why do they get away with spending money like that, reckless, and then our children have to pay for it?
And shortchanged by a man who pocketed their cash.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because the people who are actually the wrong ends are the people that tend to get away with it.
Thurrock's finances have now been taken over by Essex County Council. No money has been recovered from Liam Kavanagh. The millionaire who cheated the council is still enjoying its cash.